As Voddie has said, at the epicenter of the coming evangelical catastrophe is a new religion, and that's what this is. He has said how, or more specifically, it's a new cult. And while some may consider the term cult unnecessarily offensive, it happens to be the most accurate term available to describe the current state of affairs. He says within his book, the anti-racist movement has many of the hallmarks of a cult, including staying close enough to the Bible to avoid immediate detection, and hiding the fact that it has a new theology and a new glossary of terms that diverge ever so slightly from Christian orthodoxy. At least at first glance, in classic cult fashion, they borrow from the familiar and accepted, then infuse it with new meaning. This allows the cult to appeal to the faithful within the dominant orthodox religions from which it draws its converts. This new cult, this blew my mind whenever I read this. This new cult, the new religion, the religious nature of anti-racism, this new cult, this new body of divinity comes complete with its own cosmology, which is critical theory and critical race theory. It comes with its own original sin, which is racism. It comes with its own law. There is a law to be abided by underneath the term anti-racism. It comes with the new gospel, which is racial reconciliation. It has its own martyrs, Saints Trevon, Mike, George, Brianna, etc. It has its own priests, being the oppressed minorities. It has its own means of atonement, being reparations. You can experience a new birth, that being wokeness. Its own liturgy, being lament. Its own canon, being the critical social justice, social science. It has its own theologians, like we've mentioned today: D'Angelo, Kendi, Brown, Crenshaw, McIntosh. Even has their own catechism. Say their names, say their names, say their names. It has become a new religion. And we're going to be going through the cosmology. Now, it's a new cosmology. What is cosmology? Christians, we have our own cosmology. Cosmology is a science, and cosmology is the science that deals with how the universe was formed and structured. Christians, you and I, we get our cosmology from Genesis chapter 1, how the universe was structured and formed on day 1, on day 2. It basically boils down to Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That is our cosmology. There is a new cosmology in this religion of anti-racism. Let me read, and we're going to go through, we'll probably just get through the first day, and we'll continue this. We're going to go through the 5 days of creation in this new religion. On the first day, white people created whiteness. This is the religion of anti-racism. Here is a quote from Robin DiAngelo from his book, Is Everyone Really Equal? An Introduction to Key Concepts in Social Justice Education. He says this: although many white people feel that being white has no meaning, this feeling is unique to white people and is a key part of what it means to be white. To see one's race as having no meaning is a privilege only whites are afforded. To claim to be just human, and thus outside of race, is one of the most powerful and pervasive manifestations of whiteness. You see, another quote is, whiteness, it's a set of normative privileges granted to white-skinned individuals and groups which is invisible to those privileged by it. Voddie says in his book, this statement is as critical to the cult of anti-racism as Genesis 1:1 is to Christianity. Just as Christians cannot and do not conceive of anything in their worldview apart from the reality that there is a God who created the world, the cult of anti-racism roots every aspect of its worldview in the assertion that everything begins with the creation of whiteness. More specifically, the creation of whiteness with the express purpose of establishing white people as the dominant hegemonic oppressors and all non-white people as the objects of oppression. This is CRT, Critical Race Theory 101. And unfortunately, for many, it has also become Christianity 101. And sadly, pointing out the roots, the CR2 roots, is often dismissed as mere name-calling. Check this out. In the church, in the body of Christ, in February 2018, Jarvis Williams advanced these same ideas in a series of lectures in which he lambasted students and faculty with what could only be described as a CRT-laced tirade. Whiteness, quote, whiteness is not about your biology. It's about ideology, Williams exclaimed. It's a biological fiction, but a social fact. One aspect of whiteness was a way for Europeans who were different to homogenize themselves from these enslaved Africans. Williams would go on to state, one reason we get slavery is because of the construct of whiteness. Meaning, whiteness is no longer biology, it's ideology. You are no longer white by race, you are white by ideology. It's a social construct, means that it is something that has been constructed by the culture.
Yeah, that's why the Proud Boys can be white supremacists even though their leader is Latino.
Yes, exactly. In other words, according to a professor of... This is who this man is. This is who Jarvis Williams is, the man who just said this. In other words, according to a professor of New Testament studies at the flagship seminary in the Southern Baptist Convention, the most, like I'm talking about in America, I'm talking about old school conservatism.
Yeah.
This is who that man is. So according to him, the professor of the New Testament studies at a flagship seminary in the Southern Baptist Convention, the cosmology of CRT is undisputed fact. White people created whiteness with the express purpose of oppressing and enslaving black people. I'll finish with this one paragraph from the book. However, for the worldview to hold, one must accept the premise that the idea that of inferiority was created for the purpose of justifying unequal treatment, as though unequal treatment, which was ubiquitous throughout the history of fallen humanity, needed a justification. Now, this was a really, really good point he made here. So if slavery is just about whiteness and white people enslaving that of any other color, now let's read what he said. One wonders what justification the Africans who sold my ancestors into slavery, probably after taking them as slaves of their own, needed in order to justify the unequal treatment of their fellow Africans. Did the Egyptians, not white, did the Egyptians have to invent the concept of race in order to justify enslaving the Hebrews? No. Did the Babylonians? How about the Assyrians? The answer to these questions has to be no, since race was invented, one, by white people, and two, for the express purpose of oppressing non-white people. Their argument at the very base, the foundation, is fallible.